Hey everyone, it's Tim from Linessa Farm Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again today. We are your source for small ruminant health and wellness. And today we are talking about small square bales. So a lot of you that raise sheep and goats on a smaller scale are going to utilize these in order to feed your animals. And there are lots of things that you need to know about small square bales to keep your animals healthy, keep their nutrition where it needs to be, and keep yourself from getting ripped off. And by the time we make it to the end of the video, you're going to know everything you need to know about looking at small square bales, what different cuttings mean, and what your animals need. So we're looking at small square bales, and all small square bales are just a simplified way of baling hay, going out to a pasture, cutting down whatever is growing there and baling it up and selling the bales. Now this is different than straw. Straw is this stuff right here. This is just usually from wheat, and it is the dried stems. It doesn't offer a lot of nutritional value at all. This is what we would use for bedding. This is what we would use for feeding. So that is straw. This is hay. Now there are all kinds of different hay, depending on the area that you live in, depending on where you're at in the world or in the United States. Hay generally in the United States is made up of various types of grasses and or legumes such as clover or alfalfa. You can get all kinds of different grasses. You can get tuft grass, you can get orchard grass, timothy, rye, everything in between. Sometimes you'll even see what's called oaten hay, which is hay made from oats at a certain point in development. So you're going to want to ask the person that you're purchasing from, what kind of hay is this? Generally what they're going to do is they're going to throw some information at you, and they're going to say this is a grass mix, or this is alfalfa, or this is a clover grass mix. They're going to tell you what's in it, and then they're going to tell you about the cutting. They're going to say this is first cutting, this is second cutting. What does cutting mean? Well, it's what it sounds like. Essentially, first cutting is going to be the first cutting of the season. Second cutting will be the second cutting of the season. Third will be third, so on and so forth. So why does cutting matter? Well, it matters a lot as far as texture of the hay, generally speaking, and as far as nutritional value, generally speaking. First cutting hay is our first cut of the year. It's generally in the late spring, early summer, and it's when we get a lot of initial growth. Generally speaking, your first cutting hay is going to be a little bit coarser. It's going to have a little bit more stemminess to it, a little bit of stuff that's not as easily digestible by the animals, nor as nutritionally valuable to the animals as later cuttings. As we get into later cuttings, the texture of the hay itself generally becomes more palatable, it becomes softer, it becomes more nutrient dense, and it becomes more expensive. Now that's not to say that a third cutting is going to generally be better quality than a first cutting or a second cutting, nor is it saying that a fourth or fifth cutting are going to be better than a first or second cutting. You have to take the time to look at the hay itself. So if you're buying from someone, there are a couple things you need to keep in mind. The first one is weight does matter. The weight of a small square bale does matter. If you're buying 50 bales, and they're 10 pounds difference from one person to another, that equates to 500 pounds of hay. So when you're purchasing hay from a producer, the best way to purchase it is based on weight, not based on the number of bales that you're getting, because you may be getting shorter bales and longer bales. Some bales are more dense, other bales aren't. A little trick that some people try to play when they are making hay to sell to individuals is they will bale them looser and they will bale them lighter. If they bale them looser and they bale them lighter, they can still sell them for the same amount of money, and in the end they can make more money. They can make more hay. So you're always going to want to look at this. When I tell people, you know, you're going somewhere for the first time and you're talking to someone, take a bale, cut it open, and look at it. A lot of people say, oh, I don't want to do that. Yeah, you do want to do that because you want to look inside. What are some of the things that you're looking for? You're looking for how stemmy it is. You're looking for what's inside of there. Can you see leaf on your alfalfa? Has it been too dry or not dry enough? You're looking for moisture. Is it wet inside? If it's wet, two problems. One, it's going to be heavier, so you know it's going to seem like you're getting a better bang for your buck, but it will mold, and you don't ever want to feed moldy hay to animals. So let's crack open a bale and look. Before we do that, I want to say this. I have some different types of hay up here that I have set out. This hay here, if you look at it, this is a alfalfa grass blend. So we've got some alfalfa and some grass in there. This is mostly grass. This is a first cutting alfalfa grass blend. And when you look at this third cutting grass blend versus this first cutting alfalfa grass blend, you can see the difference. Not a lot of stems in here. This is a lot finer, a lot more palatable. This is alfalfa, although it may seem like this is going to be better because it's alfalfa and it's going to be more expensive. This actually has higher nutritional quality in it because this has a ton of stems and stuff in it, as you can see, that those animals are not going to get any nutritional value out of at all. So you want to be cautious. So when we look at these bales, I'm going to take this bale as an example. I'm going to bring it down and we're going to crack it open and we're going to look at it together. This is a pretty heavy bale. I get bales from a reliable producer. I've been buying from him for years, so I know what I'm getting. I knew that this was first cutting alfalfa grass blend when I got it. So let's take a look at it. If you're gonna be buying hay from somebody, especially for the first time, you wanna crack them open and look at it. They're just tied together with 2 strings, and then they're going to break apart. Now, when we initially talked about hay years ago, I told people, generally speaking, a good rule of thumb is going to be 1 flake per head per day per animal. I got beat up a little bit about that. Again, this is a general idea of how much you're going to have to feed your animals. Different hay, different nutrition. You're going to have to monitor your animal's overall body condition to know if you're giving them the right stuff or if you're giving them the wrong stuff and if you're giving it to them in the right amount. When we talk about flakes, the way that a baler works is it pulls some hay in and it smashes it into this bale form, and these bales break apart into flakes. So you can see right here, I've actually got 2 flakes. You can see how these 2 have broken apart. I have 3, 4, and this bale is going to be, a typical bale is going to be approximately 12 to 14 flakes. So what am I looking at when I'm pulling this apart? When I'm at the place that I'm buying this and I'm breaking it apart, what am I looking for? Well, this is pretty good quality hay for first cutting, and I can see that it does have some stemminess in there. It does have some harder stems, but you can see how I have all of my leaf is still on my alfalfa. It looks pretty good. It's been baled well. It's dry, but not super dry. It's not so dry that everything falls off of it when I break it apart. And it doesn't feel wet. If it were to feel wet inside, it definitely would not be something that I want to buy. So I can just break this up a little bit. I can look at it and I can get a good idea for what I am purchasing. I have seen individuals that went out and bought alfalfa hay before and they're like, oh, I bought all this alfalfa hay, and it was literally no leaf left on it and all it was just stem. Don't do that. So it behooves you to open up a bale and take a look at it. So this is a good alfalfa grass blend. I'm gonna break down a mainly grass blend just to show you the difference in it. My wife's gonna have a fit because I'm cutting open all these bales that we're gonna have to carry out. We will have a video coming up as far as how we feed, but again, look, lots and lots of stem in here. So in my eyes, this is not as good of a quality hay as maybe a later cutting that doesn't have as much stem, because a lot of this is waste. A lot of this isn't going to do the animal any good. So this is more of a grass. This is more of a grass blend. We'll cut this open and take a look at it just to give you an idea. And you can already see by looking at it, this is a later cutting. This is probably 3rd cutting grass. It does have a little bit of alfalfa in it. Just gonna cut this open. We're gonna pull out a flake of this, and you can see this was shorter cutting, so it's a fall apart a little bit more on you, but you can see almost no alfalfa in here at all, very little, but you can see almost all of this is palatable. I've got 1 stem, couple stems in here, but most of this is all going to be able to be eaten by the animals. Doesn't have as high a nutrition as a alfalfa blend, but still extremely palatable, and you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck. You can get your hay tested. We're not going to get into what all the test results tell you when you get it, but I did want to show you. So when we compare the 2, here's my grass blend, here is my alfalfa first cutting, and you can see lots and lots of stem. I do have lots and lots of leaf in here. I do have lots of good nutrition in here, but when we're talking about overall palatability, overall waste, you're gonna get a lot more bang for your buck than you're gonna get with this. Regardless of if you are feeding the best hay or the worst hay, you want to make sure that you are always, always, always offering your sheep and goats a free choice mineral that is made specifically for their species. So if they're goats, we want a free choice mineral made for goats. If they're sheep, we want a free choice mineral made for sheep. And we want to make sure, if we can, that it's specifically made for the sexes. So there are minerals out there like we offer at Foundation Feed that are specifically for males, and there are also also other ones that are made specifically for females. Hay has a lot of nutrients in it, but some of those nutrients get lost when we cut it off of pasture. For instance, vitamin E. Fresh grass out on pasture has tons and tons of vitamin E in it. I wouldn't say tons and tons, but it does have vitamin E in it. But as soon as it gets cut and it gets dried, a lot of that vitamin E gets oxidized and it's not able to be utilized as efficiently by the animal. So that's just one example. When you look at your bales, be cautious, take your time, find a reliable person to purchase from. And if you can, purchase as much as you can early in the season. When you're purchasing for your animals, a general rule of thumb when you need to know how much you're going to need for the season is going to be approximately 1 flake per head per day. But there's a lot that goes into that based on the weight of the hay and the nutrition. I am Tim from Linessa Farm Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again today, and I look forward to seeing all of you again next time.